Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was the Dark Phoenix of Konoha. Naruto has a big secret: he isn't the dead last he appears to be. But why would he show that before he is ready to deal with the stones the council loves placing in his way? The Sandaime, having opened his eyes, will do his best to make sure that Konoha will retain the will of fire. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 23, Wake Up Call or All Against Naruto. The rest of the week nobody saw Naruto at all. He had been excused from his team's training to prepare for the test. While nobody had said so, it was also meant to judge Naruto's progress. The Hokage wanted to know how far Naruto had come in the 4 months under Kakashi's tutelage. The secret plan was to back the council into as many corners as possible. While the promotion to Chunin was completely in the hand of the Hokage and the judges, many of them neutral parties that would never favor one ninja over the other things were not. And the council could try to regain some power in the phase of Kakashi starting as Hokage. Not that it would work, but distracting them with Naruto's spectacular performance would be a good way to smooth things over. Naruto would also be announced as the son of the Yondaime Hokage in the finals. It would have two main effects. It would let Konoha look more impressive to potential customers, but also call Minato's enemies upon the boy. So, Naruto needed to show that he was ready to shoulder those two things. For the rest of the rookie teams, it would be a show of how much better Naruto was. They needed to strive to get to the same or close to the level Naruto was at now. And if they saw Naruto as a role model, they would easier follow him in the future. And if they followed him and trusted him as their leader, the Hokage hoped, it would bind Naruto closer to the village. There was no hope for Naruto to ever more than tolerate the majority of the civilians. They had done too much to him, but as long as the major clans were united around him, he wouldn't leave. Finally, it was Saturday and the 8 remaining rookies were assembled at Training Ground 8 with their senseis. Good morning. As you can see, Naruto isn't here because he has already started the simulation. This morning he broke into the set location for the information you need to retrieve. Your mission objective is to find as much information on Naruto as you can, track him down and get the information back. But be warned, it sounds easier than it will be. You have 120 hours, exactly 5 days from now on, to fulfill your mission. We won't help you at all as we know Naruto's plan in rough. If you manage to get the information back, come to one of the meeting points. Kakashi said and handed them a piece of paper with information. This is all the information that could be collected about the theft so far. Good luck. The Jonin used the body flicker to leave. Troublesome. Shikamaru commented while looking at the piece of paper. Well, let's see the information and develop a strategy. Wait a moment, we need to make sure that nobody eavesdrops on us. There could be a transformed shadow clone of Naruto around. It's one of his favorite methods to gather information. He could also have placed seals around that let him listen into conversations. Sasuke spoke up. True, if he knew our strategy, he could easily counter it. Shino agreed and sent his bugs out. After some minutes one came back. There are no clones in a perimeter of a kilometer. But there were some seals that I don't know what they do. We better not test them. Knowing Naruto, that could include something really nasty or just a prank. Sakura said. And none of us knows enough about seals to determine what they do on time. The others nodded. So first we need to find a place where we won't be overheard. I guess there would only be one place where we could get a room that we could foolproof. The academy. Shikamaru said. Why the academy, Shikamaru? Ino wanted to know. Because Naruto wouldn't be able to foresee which room we would use, and with the constant sound level there, overhearing a conversation is hard. He would have to place listening devices in every room to make sure he finds out our strategy. Shikamaru answered. Okay, that makes sense, let's go. Kiba said. They took off towards the academy. Naruto sat in his hideout, listening to the conversations the others held. If only they knew. Shikamaru was right that he would resort to seals to listen in on their plans, just he didn't think about all the places where he could have placed the seals. It was really easy. Last week he had smuggled fleas into the Inyazuka compound which infected all their nin dogs. As a result, all the dogs now wore flea collars until they got rid of all the fleas. And in Akamaru's collar there was a listening seal. Too small to be found and nobody would suspect a flea collar to be used to listen into conversations. It wouldn't have made sense to try and foresee the location where the others would plan. They could have gone everywhere. But by having one of the others unknowingly send him the information he was getting around that part easily. In this case the teamwork and whole group meetings would work against them. On top of that nobody would notice Akamaru's new collar easily because besides Kiba nobody came close to the dog normally. And only Shikamaru would think about it. That was once he noticed that Naruto seemed to be a few steps ahead of them all the time. The group arrived at the academy and took an unused classroom to discuss their strategy. Alright, teammate, you are the best trackers among us, how would you suggest we start? Shikamaru asked. I can send out my bugs to try and find a trail. But I suspect that they will need a long time to find him as he knows about their capabilities and is well versed in distraction techniques. I suspect that he would have taken measures to conceal his scent, so our best bet is Hinata's Byakugan to find him. Shino summed up. Naruto likes to be unpredictable. You can never predict what kind of move he will pull. The only constant in our training matches was always that he would show no mercy and end a fight when he had the chance to do so. He works efficiently. Sasuke informed the others. On top of that he knows the village and the forest around it better than anybody. Sakura added. Naruto can vanish without a trace as far as I can tell in a split second. On top of that he is very skilled with traps of all kinds. Keeping an eye on the shops will also do us no good because he doesn't need to go there for anything. We also have to consider his ability to turn a shadow clone into basically everything. Yes, but this wouldn't be a test for us if he didn't leave some traces to enable us to at least try to finish this mission successfully. So he must have got instructions to give us a little chance. We will split up. Hinata, Shino, and Sakura will go to the place where he stole the information from and collect any clues we can use. Kiba and Sasuke will scout inside the village for anything that could point us to Naruto. Ino and Koji will scout the forest and I will go through all of the information we were given by our senseis. From the information Kakashi-sensei gave us on the mission parameters, Naruto will attempt to get the information out of the village within the allotted time, so we need to take that into consideration as well and watch the exits of the village. Probably placing some of Shino's bugs there to keep watch would be our best chance for now. We will meet here again in 2 hours with the first results. Shikamaru said and the others nodded. The group soon found out that finding Naruto was really difficult. From the few clues that were left at the site of the theft they didn't get much. But they didn't really expect much. Sakura made photos of the site to show the others in case they overlooked something important. Shino let his bugs try and find any scent or chakra traces of Naruto next to placing some strategically to guard the exits of the village. But as Shino had already expected, there were none. And the security cameras didn't show a thing about the theft. That feat was quickly solved though, as Hinata found a device with a tape that had a 4-hour sequence of the undisturbed room. As long as nobody set off the alarms, nobody would find out in time that anything was stolen. Kiba and Sasuke had split up to scout inside the village. They tried to find out if anybody had seen Naruto, but nobody had done so, and from the reactions of the civilians they were glad about it. Sasuke massively wondered about that behavior. As he hadn't done many missions inside the village for civilians, he hadn't realized that Naruto was that disliked. No wonder that Naruto hated the civilians. He would too if he was treated like this. Probably he would have already set them on fire or something like that. He didn't have much patience for idiots. But this made finding Naruto that much harder. Nobody cared to notice him even if he had been somewhere. The Hokage looked at the report he had got from one of his teams concerned. This was a serious problem. While they had by now taken care of the old Uchiha draining seals all over the village, a group of Hyagas had noticed other seals all over the village that looked much older even. He had them take care of the seals, but if anybody had managed to basically turn the village into a waiting time bomb, it was cause for immediate action. The security measures of the village couldn't be that good if this had been overlooked for so long with a whole clan of Byakugan users around. He decided to call Kakashi in. As his successor, he should be involved in trying to solve the problem. Kakashi appeared 10 minutes after the Hokage sent out the call. The Hokage activated the privacy seals around the office and sent the Umbu out. "You wanted to see me, Hokage-sama?" Kakashi asked. "Yes, Kakashi. We have a problem at our hands that I hadn't seen before. As you know, I had members of the Hyaga clan disable the seals that originated from the old Uchiha district. During that task they found other, older seals spread over the village, explosive seals." The Sandaime said, giving Kakashi a serious look immediately. "That's bad. How could that many seals be overlooked? That shouldn't be possible." Kakashi said. "I don't know yet, but it is a major reason for concern. I don't like the thought that people could invade Konoha by using such a trap. From examining the seals, many must have been decades old. That isn't assuring me in the village security and counter-espionage departments. The worst part is we even found masses of those seals inside the Hokage monument. The shelters for our civilians in case of emergencies are there." The Hokage said. "I see. We really need to come up with new security measures to prevent something like that from happening. I don't want to imagine what could happen if we were target of an invasion with that kind of security problem in our backs," Kakashi said. "Especially as we know from Jiraiya-sama's reports that both that Akatsuki organization and Orochimaru are up to something." "Indeed. That's why I called you here. As my successor, you should be involved in setting up new security protocols. The Chunin exams are in 1.5 months, and it will be the time we will announce you as the Godame Hokage, Naruto's heritage, and show all those that come to watch the finals just how strong our next generation is. We can't let anything happen then. I want the Chunin exams to be the last highlight in my career as Hokage." The Sandaime said. Kakashi nodded. "Should I call Naruto in? He is the one with the best idea of the weaknesses in our defenses from his pranks." Kakashi asked. "Excellent idea, Kakashi. But isn't he doing a test with the rookies on their tracking and capture skills?" The Hokage asked. "He is, but I have a way to contact him if necessary. He could send us a shadow clone and work as Dark Phoenix. It makes sense since including new seals into the defenses of the village would make them stronger and more unpredictable. We have to consider that we have S-rank missing ninjas out there that know a lot about our methods to protect the village after all," Kakashi said. "All right, call him." The Hokage agreed. It took an hour for Naruto in his Dark Phoenix attire to appear at the Hokage's office. "You called for me, Hokage-sama?" Naruto asked after landing in the office. "Yes, you are getting as bad as Jiraiya, always coming through the window. We need your expertise in sealing and the weaknesses of the village's defenses, Dark Phoenix," the Hokage said. "Okay, what's the reason that this came up?" Naruto asked, intrigued. Kakashi briefed Naruto on the found explosive seals and their thoughts on the overall village security. "I see. Well, first we need to change the frequency of the protective barrier around the village. Both Orochimaru and Itachi are still registered as Konoha ninjas, at least for the barrier. It wouldn't notify us if they went through it. I suggest letting Jiraiya write those seals as he has more experience which areas need to be covered and how to write the chakra signatures that are allowed inside into new seals. I would even suggest to not excluding anybody from being spotted. Everybody should trigger a message to a surveillance team. Said team can check the chakra signatures against those of out ninjas. Perhaps we could make it so that the Hokage gets a special signal so that he and an escort can pass through unbothered. That way we know immediately if anybody enters that we don't want to enter the village. Let's say we make the barrier triple layered. First layer about 10 kilometers outside of Konoha. It will be triggered by anybody nearing the village. Second layer will be 5 kilometers away from Konoha. Only our registered ninjas can pass through that layer. I suggest a seal to be carried by all ninjas on a mission that allows them to pass through that barrier unbothered. Everybody else would need to show documentation that allows them to pass through with one-time passing seals. The setup isn't too difficult. Several plants have one-way membranes in their cells. Copying the effect for a barrier is completely possible. The ninjas that went through before would have to identify themselves at the gates by a chakra identifying seal. That way nobody can slip through unnoticed even in case a Konoha team would be ambushed outside. On top I would suggest to make sure that the walls are strengthened by similar seals like the bridge in Wave Country. It would make any attempt to bring the walls down much harder for any intruder. Right now, say Orochimaru would only need to summon some of his bigger snakes and let them crash the walls, creating a hole where attack troops could get through. Naruto listed his points. Before we can start that we need to eliminate all spies we have in the village. Kakashi spoke up. We would waste our time if an enemy spy found out about the new measures and attacked when we took down the former barrier to replace it with a better one. The best strategic time to attack us would be the Chunin exams as we would be forced to not only fight any attackers, but also protect our important guests. With all the guests coming in it would also be harder to detect known hostile elements. Leave the spy elimination to me and Danzo. We can deal with those we know and have an eye on easily. After all, that's what the root is really good at. The Hokage said and got nods from the younger two. We also need to find a way to stop aerial attacks. Some ninjas have techniques that allow them to fly over natural obstacles and as long as they keep out of the range of the barrier, we wouldn't notice them until too late. Kakashi mentioned. True. We need to keep a core ready at all times to fight of aerial attackers. We would need either long-range specialists or find a way to let them fly themselves. Any seal ideas on that, Dark Phoenix? The Hokage asked. It might be possible, let me sketch this up a moment. It is possible to use seals with clothes. My cloak that I have got for the Chunin exams is proof that it works, but I use my wind manipulation for that and the cloth I had my cloak made of is really expensive and rare. Naruto mumbled, drawing calculations on a piece of paper. The material used can't be too heavy, but needs to be chakra conductive. Still, it needs to be sturdy enough to not be easily destroyed. Either nature manipulation or gravity manipulation might work. Nature would be harder as wind manipulation isn't that well trained in Konoha. But what if it was a device? The two older men looked in awe as Naruto's pen sped over the paper, writing things, drawing diagrams, crossing things out and forming basics of a possible seal or device. All the while the blue eyes of the boy shone happily from the challenge. The hidden Umbu didn't really believe what they saw. That boy reminded them a lot of the late Yondaime when he was trying to work out how to get a seal to work while letting a shadow clone do his paperwork. Okay, I think I can get this done in about a week. Naruto finally announced. I just need one of the guarded training grounds to test it once I have built a prototype. We can arrange that, Dark Phoenix. The Hokage said. What other problems does our current security have? That the ninjas got lazy over the time we had peace. I mean, Kakashi here is the prime example. While right now he is S-ranked, He fell to average A rank from nearly S rank after he left Umbu. He allowed his skills to deteriorate. While average A rank is still impressive, if he had to go up against a ninja like Itachi Uchiha, he would have got his ass handed to him. And he was one of the strongest in the village while being A rank. It also is embarrassing how easily Naruto Uzumaki could do his pranks. Sure, he was hiding his real skills, but really, an academy student that was able to trick basically all the chunin of the village when he was 8 years old? They should have been able to catch him sooner. Or later, even the Jonin, once he turned 10 and the chunin didn't stand a chance anymore. Naruto pointed out the blatant incompetency of those tasked to catch him after one of his pranks. The only restriction they had was not using lethal methods and bringing him in mostly unharmed. That means they should have been able to catch him easily, if only by using basics like transformation or replacement. I mean, Iruka Umino managed to do just fine and he is an average chunin. Naruto didn't mention that Iruka was also a censor and therefore able to find Naruto no matter where he hid until he figured out how to suppress his chakra. After that they had needed the Jonin. Yes, I will that I address that problem in the next meeting. The Hokage nodded. On top of that, you need to make it mandatory for all those with chunin rank and higher to regularly take courses to improve their knowledge. I have seen it myself. I was allowed to do as I liked in my training and I neglected getting stronger at a certain point. While genin have their jonin senseis to improve their skills, mostly ninjas from clans get better techniques after making chunin. Others may have some family techniques if the families have been shinobi for a while, but otherwise the development of our forces is restricted to the clans. And some keep their members for clan business and they are only reserves for the village. Kakashi said. I mean, we could for example implement Tsunade-sama's old idea of setting up a medic program. We still have too few competent medics out there. We have many with good chakra control in the academy. It just never really leads to anything. Why not address those that have the control necessary to become medics while the children are young? Training a good medic takes time and it would actually help if we could send some of those that failed the Jonin Sensei's tests, but had the control to the hospital for more training. They wouldn't become full ninjas directly, but a fully trained medic would gain the rank by passing their test. He suggested. That's actually a very good idea, Kakashi, one which is practical. The hardest part is finding ninjas that are willing to invest a lot of time in intensive study of anatomy and medicine. But if we take the graduates that fail the test for other reasons, we could build up a good base. The Hokage acknowledged. Good, I will call Jiraiya back to work out the barrier seals while you get to produce a working way for building up aerial combat devices that won't hinder any ninjas that use them. The Hokage then turned to Kakashi. Kakashi, write a draft of the idea for the program and include any other ideas on how to use the potential that is currently lost to the village from the failed graduates. Until the new curriculum shows effects with the next batch, we should utilize what we already have. I want reports in 3 days, dismissed. Both Naruto and Kakashi bowed and left the room, this time through the door. Shikamaru sat pondering the information they had collected on Naruto and the clues to the fake case they had been tasked to solve. They had now tried for 3 days to find Naruto, but had completely failed. The only positive report was that Shino's bugs hadn't noticed anything out of the norm, so it was fairly safe to say that the information was still inside the village. It was as if Naruto always knew what they had planned before they did it. They had screened the whole academy classroom for listening seals, but they had come up negative. How did Naruto know what steps they were taking? How did he listen into their discussions? After the room had turned up clean, he had the others check all their clothes and accessories. In case of the girls, even their headbands had been checked and nothing had come up. They had checked for disguised shadow clones and nothing was there. This was getting frustrating. They had all assembled to put together all information they had got. They needed to find out just how Naruto was always a step ahead of them. Alright, we know that Naruto is somehow eavesdropping into our conversations. We were all told about the fake mission 1 week before it started. As we have ruled out the location, our clothes, and accessories as the base for him doing it, we must have overlooked something. We need to figure it out before planning something new. We only have 2 days left, and if we don't find the leak, we will only continue to be embarrassed by falling for his fake trails. Shikamaru declared. Ino and Sakura could only nod. They had been victims of a paint bomb trap and still had orange hair, much to their displeasure. Sasuke and Shino had fallen into itching powder traps when they had searched the old Uchiha district, thinking that the abandoned parts of the village would make a good hiding place for Naruto. It had even affected Shino's bugs, and that had made the normally stoic Abarame really annoyed. Kiba and Akamaru had been knocked out by a really bad stink bomb for half a day after they had thought that they had found a clue in a small alley. Their noses were still hurting and next to useless for them right now. Hinata had only barely avoided getting hit by a trap she set off. She didn't want to imagine the scolding she would have got from her father if she turned up with permanent wave like some of the civilians that had been caught by the smoke that had come from the seal she had overlooked until it was too late. What can we do? Koji asked. We need to think of anything that happened during the week before the test mission that was unnormal. Anything out of the norm could have been Naruto's doing. Be it unusual visits of people at the library or somebody buying an unusual amount of supplies. We can assume that Naruto would have done that using a transformation jutsu. Shikamaru said. We checked the stores, but the only one buying more supplies were tasked by the Hokage, and that is nothing new since Dark Phoenix started equipping the village armory with seals. Sasuke said. It would be hard to separate who could have been Naruto and who were Hokage-sama's people. True, so the stores could be a lead, but hard to find out, especially with only 2 days' time. Shikamaru admitted. I don't know about anything unnormal. Kiba said. We only had another dog bring fleas into our kennels, so our dogs all got new flea collars. But that happens every few months, and after a thorough cleaning everything goes back to normal. The collars are prepared by my clan's vets and are checked to be safe. Well, somebody bought all the shampoo supplies in the village 2 days before the test started. Hinata said, surprising the others. Honestly, didn't you think that my clan with so many people with long hair would notice something like that? She asked, exasperated. Did anything come out of that, Hinata? Shikamaru asked. No, the next day the stocks had been refilled. She answered. We have also by now checked all potential hiding places that are suited for setting up a kind of base, all places that are a bit isolated, and even the complete forest area that is part of this scenario. He was nowhere. Shino stated. We are overlooking something. Just what could that be? Shikamaru pondered. What if he uses an obvious place? He can't have used any of the places that are unreachable for us, but what if he thinks that we wouldn't look in an obvious place? Sakura asked. We checked Ichiraku's, the Hokage monument, his apartment, the academy, and all the training grounds. Shikamaru listed. I don't know any others. And by now we should have found at least something. Shino said. Yeah, he can't sit in some hole for 5 days and not give any scent traces. He would at least need access to sanitary rooms. Otherwise tracking him would be a lot easier. Kiba added. They pondered on the issue. Naruto listened to what his comrades were thinking and got a good laugh out of it. One moment he thought that Shikamaru might get the right conclusion about the flea collars, but thankfully Kiba had told that it wasn't unnormal for it to happen. He had based his plan on that information. It could easily happen that a stray dog brought fleas to the Inyazuka compound, or that a dog caught some on a mission that weren't noticed before the dogs returned to the clan compound with their partners. He had intentionally sent a squirrel with fleas into the compound and the dogs had chased it all around. That a stray with more fleas had turned up had been lucky on his part. Therefore the whole compound had been infested and needed to be cleaned. And sneaking inside after the collars had been checked to be handed out the next morning had been easy. One transformation into a mouse and Akamaru's collar got a listening seal in miniature version. He was really proud of that creation. The seal was only as big as his little finger's nail. It blended perfectly with the enzymes the Inyazukas used to get rid of the fleas. If the others only knew how he fulfilled the part of regularly being in public. The mission parameters he had included that he had to be out of any hiding place he used for at least 4 hours a day. Well, he was out more than that. One of the Hokage's usual assistants had come down with the stomach flu and Naruto had taken over his place. So if the others didn't check with the hospital and cross-referenced the ninjas in every department with patients, they wouldn't find him. That was the one true big clue he left for them to find him. So far they hadn't thought of that. Well, they were rookies. The time was up and the rookies hadn't managed to find Naruto. They were disappointed about that, but assembled at the meeting point. Their senseis were present. The group gave a sorry image. Naruto did strike massively one last time with a prank before the time was up. Now Koji and Ino resembled yellow chickens having feathers glued to them all over. The glue seemed to be resistant to any way of getting rid of it. Shikamaru sported a red afro, Shino's face was black with orange dots letting him look like a big bug, Kiba and Akamaru were scratching themselves, Hinata's normal clothes were exchanged with a tight pink spandex and Sasuke and Sakura had orange glitter all over them. Well, it doesn't seem like you were successful. Asuma commented. No, we weren't. Ino admitted grumbling. Just how did he manage to hide that perfectly and target us with the pranks? Well, Naruto will be here soon, so we will start discussing his strategy and your mistakes once he is here. Kurane said. She was a bit disappointed. Her team specialized in tracking. That they hadn't managed to find Naruto at all meant that they needed a lot more work. Asuma thought similarly. His team specialized in information gathering and should have found out more. Kakashi knew that Sasuke and Sakura, while they knew more about Naruto than others, didn't even scratch any real knowledge about him. They had never even bothered to learn more about their blonde teammate. Well, the rookies would learn a lot this afternoon, that much was sure. Naruto appeared in the middle of the group with a cloud of smoke, grinning massively, obviously enjoying the looks he got from his pranked comrades. Well, I guess I won this round. He commented, chuckling about the grim and sometimes enraged looks on the others' faces. Alright, Naruto, do you want to do the debriefing here or in another place? Kakashi asked. They were in a classroom at the academy at the moment. No, here is perfect. Everybody sit down, take out your notebooks and pens and listen. He said seriously, turning to the group. There were 2 major reasons you didn't even find a trace of me the past 5 days. First, let me start with my mission parameters. I had to be out in public, meaning in a public building, the streets of Konoha or the forest for at least 4 hours every day. Second, I could only use 5 clones at the same time. Third, I was limited to non-lethal countermeasures to your attempts to find me, which the ones that were caught in my prank traps can attest to. Think what would have happened if I had been able to use lethal traps, and you know one of your major problems. You didn't take all possible safety precautions you could. He could see Ino gulp, thinking what might have been, and some others were also looking pale. Next to that, you disregarded preparation. You should have been on guard from the moment I got the get-go. You could have watched out for anything that could have been part of my plans. I had much too easy a time to get everything set up. A ninja never plays fair but uses all ways he has to achieve his goal. So you trying to spy on my moves or setting up countermeasures to something you knew would happen was stupid to the extreme. The 3 Jonin nodded, confirming that statement. It would be a negative part of their reports. From what you were told when the mission started, I was an enemy spy who had stolen important information from the village that couldn't be allowed to fall into enemy hands. You had been told that the Hokage had closed off all normal communication lines, so I needed to get out of the village myself. Normally, that is. I got the information out the second day. Naruto said, shocking the others. It was fairly simple. I know all the genin teams in Konoha. I simply disguised 4 of my shadow clones as a genin team tasked to capture Tora. They got out of the village easily by simply complaining about having to catch the demon cat again. Boom, the information was out of the village. I deposited the scroll in a hollow tree 3 kilometers outside of the village. To make my cover believable, I had a transformation seal make a stone look like Tora and let them return. Nothing out of the norm, but highly effective. Next part was finding me. Well, I was always a step ahead of you, because I had the perfect spy in your middle. Naruto said, causing outcries. He chuckled. I find it funny that Shikamaru didn't think of it. Kiba actually gave him the information he needed. I feared for a moment that he would realize how I listened into all of your conversations. Ugh, it's the flu collar. Shikamaru said. Troublesome. Correct. On Akamaru's flu collar is a miniature seal that transferred everything you spoke about 5 meters around him to me, which was especially useful as the ones mostly tasked with tracking me were Shino, Hinata, and Kiba. As fleas in the Inyazuka compound are a regular occurrence, I could use the standard response of the clan to my advantage in this training mission. I simply sent a squirrel with fleas into the compound and only had to wait for the collars to be handed out. I know each clan compound from my pranks, so sneaking inside transformed as a small animal was easy. Naruto explained how he had placed the listening seal. From this you should learn to never discard any kind of information. The most regular thing can be a hint. For example, I was one of the Hokage's assistants that bought ordered materials to get the things I needed for the mission. And my hiding spot was in the Hokage tower. Naruto told them. What? But how did you manage to do that unnoticed? Ino cried out. I observed the assistants in the tower for a whole week. I did the same with the hospital and library personnel, by the way. We always have somebody who is injured or sick. And I only needed to put a harmless drug into the food of one of the assistants in the tower and I had a position I could take over. Something you could have found out had you cross-referenced the patient lists of the hospital with the list of ninjas in the public places. You knew that I had to appear there for some hours, so it should have been one of the first things you did. While you sent Shino to the library and Hinata to the hospital, you forgot the Hokage tower. None of you looked there the whole 5 days. You can't exclude any place just because people there should notice an imposter. To be honest, the Hokage will get a report about how his assistants that normally work there didn't realize that I was an imposter. The only one that did was Danzo Shimura, and he complimented me on my great disguise. Naruto said. The 3 senseis didn't look happy hearing that news. If Naruto could get away for 5 days working at the tower, there needed to be better training of intruder detection. Now, while I was restricted to 5 clones at every time of the day, that didn't restrict me as much as people might think it would. After all, while I slept, my clones could still set up traps and lay false trails. That way you were kept busy. Naruto said. But where were you resting? Shikamaru asked. I can understand how you managed to blend in with the personnel at the Hokage tower if you managed to impersonate one of the assistants perfectly. We would never have noticed if those that normally work there didn't. But you needed to sleep at least 4 hours each day to function. That's easy as well. You know about the resting rooms for those that are working shifts in the Hokage tower and the hospital? I simply used one of them. I only needed to divide off a small area of the room by using standard disguise equipment like a wall-colored cloth and a bit of wire to hide my resting place. I didn't need to worry about a bathroom as I could simply use the one at the tower in my regular breaks. As for food, I had everything I needed sealed up in scrolls before I started this mission. After all, supplies for 5 days aren't hard to store. And if I really needed anything I didn't calculate for, I could send a transformed clone to a shop. There are so many ninjas or civilians that live in Konoha that no shop owner would have noticed anything. Naruto answered. The important part of my techniques to stay hidden is that I didn't use anything besides basic academy knowledge. Naruto stated. But your seals clearly aren't academy knowledge. Kiba protested. Sealing scrolls are covered in 3rd year of the academy and are available at every shinobi supplies shop. Naruto countered. Listening devices can also be bought there if you are at least genin and are preparing for a mission. You only need to show the permission slip from the Hokage. For this mission I didn't draw one seal myself, I got them all from the shops. The listening seal I used is a new seal that the Hokage gave permission to use. Every single one of those seals is tracked by a special division of the village security teams. I used stealth, clones, transformations, scent erasing techniques, diversion tactics, and everything I found useful in the academy curriculum. Well, the curriculum that was used in war times, that is. I never learned the peacetime curriculum because I think that it is a waste of time. Kakashi nodded, knowing what Naruto was talking about. Well, after Naruto now explained how he managed to win this scenario and how you failed the mission, let's go over how you go about a mission like this. Kakashi started and Naruto took a seat while Kakashi went to the front. This scenario was set up that you only had a small chance to pass it. The genins were outraged hearing this. Why would you set us up for a failure? Kiba shouted. To prevent you from dying in the field. Kakashi said seriously, shutting them all up instantly. Kurane, Asuma, and I noticed that some of you were getting overconfident in your new abilities combined with your clan abilities. Overconfidence is one of the major causes for fresh ninjas being killed on missions. Another is false information. Team 7 has told you how our mission to Wave Country got upgraded from a C rank to an A rank. Normally we would have returned to Konoha after we found out that the client had lied about the mission parameters, but it wasn't an option because it would have given a crime lord a hold in a country that is close to Fire Country's borders. On top, the people of Wave Country were in danger of starving or being killed by an oppressor. That is a kind of mission Konoha won't refuse to do. He looked at each of the genin. Normally I would have waited for backup to arrive after the Demon Brothers of Kiri appeared, but as I knew that technically my team didn't consist of 3 green genin, but a technical jonin, a genin with low chunin level skills and a genin level kunoichi, I could justify continuing the mission. Had I done that with a real green team, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura would probably have died when we encountered Zabuza Mamakai. There are reasons why certain missions are given to certain ranks. You may complain about the D-rank missions, but they have their reason in training you to work together with your teammates, train your bodies and give the village an easy source of income. The type of fake mission you were confronted with the past 5 days was what normally would have been classed as a B rank depending on how dangerous Naruto's role would have been classified. It could have been an A rank. Normally only experienced Chunin or Jonin get that kind of mission. It is dangerous to try and rat out a spy. Even if Naruto intentionally gave a hint which disguise he had taken. What would you have done if your orders had been to infiltrate a village without leaving any traces, Naruto? Kakashi asked. I would have spied through liberal use of shadow clones 2 weeks prior to infiltrating the village, checking out whom I could easily impersonate. I wouldn't choose a high-ranking member of the village, I would use somebody who is an everyday character. Somebody who wouldn't be missed immediately. Normally I would have first captured said person, interrogated him or her for normal behavior, quirks, and the like, then I would have sealed him up in a prisoner scroll. I would have taken the person's place, let my clones collect information in the important areas of the village, and after a while I would have left the village, letting a clone take my place for 2 days until I was a good distance away. After that I would let the clone free my prisoner whom I would have used a memory seal on and have my clone dispel. Naruto told his standard strategy. Very good, Naruto. How do you counter being detected? Kakashi asked. Several ways. If I have the information, I use the hunter teams to get out of the village after making them believe I got away with important information. Hunters operate in teams of 4, but normally split up at some point, which would be a perfect opportunity to get away for me. If I don't have the information, I set up a decoy and take another identity. My special form of transformation can't be detected even by sensor ninjas. I would speed up the information gathering process if possible. If not, I would use several decoy attacks to stretch the village troops away from the information I want. The village by that point already knows that a spy is somewhere, but finding said spy if you can't be sure how he looks is really hard. Naruto answered. Kakashi nodded. The others were intrigued by how much Naruto seemed to know about that kind of mission. How do you know so much about infiltration missions, Naruto? Hinata asked. How do you think I managed to do my pranks? I have years of experience in this field of expertise. Naruto answered. You can't get away with as many pranks as I did if you don't have reliable information. But you were always caught. Koji said. For 20% of everything I really did, Koji. I got away with 80% of my pranks because there was no proof I did it. And not everything I did was flashy. Some things were more subtle. Certain streaks of bad luck were caused by me. Naruto replied. And I would like to add that by the time he was 10 we needed Jonin to catch him after a prank that was flashy. Asuma mentioned. We should have noticed it then. Nobody wanted to notice it, Asuma-sensei. Naruto countered. After all, I was the dead last. He said, punctuating the dead last part. The briefing changed the Genin's outlook on their missions a lot. Chapter 24, Beginning of the Chunin Exams. Finally it was time for the Chunin exams to begin. The Sandaime Hokage had assembled all the Jonins of the village to get the teams that would participate nominated. Well, we will start with the new Genin. Technically each Genin that has done a minimum of 8 missions can be nominated, normally of course they would have done more. The Hokage said. Kakashi, Kurane, and Asuma stepped forward, Kakashi looking smugger than usual. The Hokage knew that last night Kakashi had won the bet whose team would collect most points over the span of 6 months. It was only by 2 points, but he had won. Sakura had beaten Koji and surprisingly Shino in their last one-on-one spars. Sasuke beat Hinata and Shikamaru while Naruto took out Ino and Kiba. All the teams had developed exceptionally and he had no doubt that they would all be nominated. Kurane was first. Kurane Uehai, sensei of Team 8, consisting of Shino Abarame, Kiba and Yazuka, and Hinata Hyuga recommend these 3 under the name of Kurane Uehai to take the Chunin exams. She said, making the confrontation sign. Asuma followed. Asuma Sarutobi, sensei of Team 10, consisting of Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Koji Akimichi nominate these 3 under the name of Asuma Sarutobi to take the Chunin exams. He said using the same sign. Kakashi gave the Hokage a look and got a nod. It was time to reveal some secrets. Kakashi Hatake, sensei of Team 7, consisting of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Harano, and Naruto Namikaze, a loud intake of breath from nearly all Jonin was heard, but Kakashi ignored it. Nominate these 3 under the name Kakashi Hatake to take the Chunin exams. What do you mean, Namikaze? He can't be Yondaime-sama's son. One man called out enraged. I think I would know my sensei's only son, Gaichi. Kakashi said coldly. He is finally ready to take up his heritage. I have trained him to the best of my ability for the last 6 months to be ready, as I know that Iwa and possibly Kumo might try to assassinate him once his identity is known. Why do you think no spy was capable of getting a good picture of Naruto for their bingo books after our Wave Country mission? That shocked the Jonins. Only Asuma seemed relaxed. I should have made a bet, I would have won a lot of money. Asuma said, chuckling. I figured you had figured it out by now. You were the one to test him after all. Kakashi said. I would be a lousy Jonin if I hadn't noticed the similarities in the fighting styles. Asuma confirmed. This is all well, but we need to continue with the nominations. The Hokage said. Of course, Hokage-sama. Gaimato, sensei of Team 9, consisting of the youthful Rock Lee, Niji Hyuga, and Tenten Jakonato, nominate my 3 youthful students to take the Jonin exams. Guy continued giving the nice guy pose at the end. The senseis that wanted to nominate their teams followed one after the other, none of them as exuberant as Guy though. Good, then we have 29 teams taking the exams. I expect all of your students to represent Konoha worthwhile. Now on to the next topic. As you probably have heard by now, I will step down again after the Chunin exams. As they will start in exactly 7 days from now, I will tell you now who I have chosen as the Godame Hokage. The Sandaime said. This got the full attention of all Jonin. They had waited a whole month since the news had broken through that the professor wanted to retire again. The name has been kept a secret until now, as my successor had an important task to fulfill, which will end after the finals of the Chunin exams. At least to the point where he needs to put his full attention into it. Kakashi, step forward. The Hokage called, and Kakashi stood by the Hokage's side. I have chosen Kakashi Hatake, student of Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, to become the Godame Hokage. Until the finals, this information is classified to be known only to the Umbu and Jonin. As you have probably noticed, Kakashi has gained S rank in every bingo book by now, which was something I told him to do before taking over the hat from me. His second objective was to train his team to a point where they can safely take up missions on their own after he took over as Hokage. The Hokage explained. Many nodded, seeing the sense in the decision to wait with the announcement for those reasons. Over the next month I will let Kakashi take over more and more of my duties. As his team will be busy with the Chunin exams, there won't be a problem. For his students, we have already ensured that they get the best teachers possible to prepare them if they manage to get through the first 2 parts of the exams, which, if they perform like they did on their missions so far, shouldn't be a problem. The Hokage told the others. Hokage-sama, how strong are they if you are so sure that they will pass? Aoba asked. Let me answer this, please. Kakashi asked the Hokage. Of course, Kakashi. The Hokage said. Well, most of you should have heard of some of the missions my team has done so far. By now Sakura is a capable field medic and aspiring to become one of the best medic nins there are. She is a solid Chunin level kunoichi, which I wouldn't have expected in the beginning because she was a horrible fangirl. Thankfully I managed to break her out of that phase. Sasuke is also a solid to high Chunin level. He now has his superiority complex under control, which was a major issue in the beginning. I had to literally beat it out of him or let Naruto do it. Naruto is Jonin level. Kakashi stated and was interrupted. Kakashi, why didn't the boy try and graduate early with that level of strength? I mean, being Jonin level with 12 shows some serious talent. Genma asked. Because the village sabotaged him too much. Naruto feared that if he wasn't clearly above Genin level when he graduated, he would be failed on purpose and be placed under the mercy of the civilian council again. So he hid his true abilities to pass as the dead last of his class to be put on Sasuke's team, as he was sure that it would be the one team that wouldn't be allowed to fail. Kakashi answered. I want you to be aware that Naruto holds little love for the village. I spent the last 6 months trying to give him bonds to the village so that if Hokage-sama one day dies of old age or other reasons, Naruto would still stay loyal to Konoha. If I had failed, we would have had an enemy at our hands worse than Itachi Uchiha. This made many gasps. Itachi was legendary, and to think Naruto was stronger than him was a major strike. As the future Hokage, I expect all ninjas to treat Naruto as what he is, a comrade. Naruto isn't his prisoner and has never harmed anybody that hasn't harmed him. But make no mistakes, Naruto won't take any abuse from the village. He is willing to treat all ninjas neutrally at least, and those that prove to him that they deserve it nicely. On top, I hope I made it clear that I don't want Sasuke to fall back into old bad habits. Treat him like every other ninja. My students are all trained to respect their superiors, but they will question all orders that they think are stupid or will harm the village. They will be polite about it, but they won't simply accept any information as absolute. They will also interpret their orders to suit them best to fulfill their missions. Kakashi informed them. He got nods from the other jonins. They had heard how hard he had trained with his team. He was giving Guy a run for his money as the hardest teacher in the physical aspect. Good, now that you have an idea what my successor has done the last months, everybody except Kakashi and the ones that are responsible for the Chunin exams is dismissed. Remember that the information about what you heard here except for the nominated teams is confidential. In particular, that means Kakashi being the Godame and Naruto being the Yondame's son. The Hokage said, and most of the group left. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura sat at Training Ground 7, reading a scroll each. Kakashi had told them to wait for him here and that he didn't know how long the meeting he had to go to would take. So they had brought a scroll on skills they wanted to train next each. Sakura was about to advance to the 3rd level of her medical training and read up on the theoretical skills that she would need to learn the next practical skills. So far, she had learned the mythical hand jutsu and how to set broken bones. On top of that, she had lean chakra scalpels. Next would be techniques to get rid of basic poisons, and they were tricky, so she wanted to be absolutely sure with her knowledge to impress her teachers at the hospital. Sasuke was reading up on lightning manipulation. He had mastered fire manipulation a month ago and had trained to perfect his fire jutsus till now. His repertoire of jutsus now held 10 fire jutsus including fire clones, which had been hard to learn. But it wasn't a B-rank technique for nothing after all. Naruto read about combinations with his summons. Jiraiya had written a letter, telling him that he would take over his training for the month between the 2nd and 3rd rounds of the Chunin exams and work with him on those combination attacks. They had been reading for an hour now when Kakashi appeared with his normal body flicker. Sorry for the delay, but Hokage-sama had some important announcements to make and there were some explanations given to the Jonin in the meeting. Kakashi said, I see you used the time productive. I will be straight to the point. I have nominated you 3 for the Chunin exams that will start in 7 days at 10 in the morning here in Konoha. The 3 smiled hearing that. They had known that the exams were coming up, and to be nominated this early was a sign that their sensei trusted them to be able to do well in them. Considering his high expectations for them every day, he would never have let them take them if he wasn't convinced that they had a chance for promotion. Naruto, please set a privacy seal up. Kakashi said seriously. Naruto nodded, took a sealing scroll from his pouch and unsealed a batch of pre-made seals. He placed them all around their team and then activated them. There is one thing you need to be aware of. Naruto, as planned, we have decided that you will take the exams under your true name. Kakashi said and got a nod from Naruto. His true name? But you said he is an Uzumaki. I looked his clan up and it fit with what you told us about them. Sakura said confused. Uzumaki was my mother Kushina's maiden name. I got her name after she and my father died to protect me from my father's enemies until I was ready to deal with them. My true name is Naruto Namikaze. I am the son of Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto explained. Sakura looked absolutely shocked. Sasuke not so much. You suspected it, Sasuke. Naruto asked, interpreting his teammate's face correctly. Since after the Wave Country mission. While Kakashi-sensei mentioned how many Yamanakas lost their lives thanks to IWA hating the Yondaime and telling that thanks to your hair color you could become a target for the IWA ninjas were faced, I was curious if there wasn't more to it. I took a good look at the picture of the Yondaime Hokage in the Hokage's office when we returned, and there are many similarities between you two. For one, your hair and your eye color, but also your affinities and your talent with sealing. Combine that with the interest the Yondaime's teacher Jiraiya and his student Kakashi take show in your development, not to mention the Hokage himself, and it was a safe bet to say you were his hidden son or at least nephew. Sasuke pointed out. That information shouldn't be a secret for long, so I wanted to inform you early on to prepare you. There will be a huge outcry in the village as soon as the information spreads, which will be in a week when the exams start. All the Jonin were sworn to secrecy about certain points, including Naruto's identity, until the Hokage releases them. Which will be when the participants for the final round are decided. The exams traditionally consist of 3 parts. I won't tell you what they are, that would be an unfair advantage. I will just say that you need to remember everything I taught you in the last 6 months. Additionally, I want you to show what you have learned. No matter if you manage to get promoted, which I think is absolutely possible for all of you, after the exams you will be taking more missions without me, as I will be taking over as Godaime Hokage after the finals. Kakashi said. He and the Hokage had decided that Kakashi's students deserved to be informed about this before going into the exams, so that they knew that Kakashi's reputation would be massively influenced by their performance in the exams. You're going to be the Godaime, sensei? Sakura asked, surprised, and this time only Naruto wasn't surprised. Sasuke was impressed that his sensei would become Hokage in a little over a month. Naruto only smiled, having known about the plan, even if the Sandaime and Kakashi hadn't known that he knew. Yes, I will. I am one of the strongest ninjas we have in the village, and as the son and don't want to become Hokage, well, Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama that is, I was chosen. Kakashi confirmed with an eye smile. I'm sure you'll do a good job, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said, smiling. Dad would be proud of you. Thank you, Naruto. Kakashi said, touched. Alright, while you can't tell anybody that I am going to be Hokage yet, I will make sure that you will represent me accordingly. So we will go over all the important things for the exams. I have arranged for you to live together for the next week so that your teamwork will be at its best. Don't worry, you get separate rooms. While I know that you can work together well enough, I know that you aren't that close to each other. And I'm not crazy enough to force you to sleep in the same room if it isn't strictly necessary. That was a massive relief for his students. Over the next week, Kakashi drilled his 3 students in taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu detection and dispelling, strategy, survival techniques and teamwork. By the end of the week they were completely prepared for anything they might have to do in the exams. They went home for the last night before the exams. Sakura had to bite her tongue to not tell her mother that her sensei was the next Hokage, but she had been strictly forbidden to do so. And on top she had realized that her mother's ideas of how a ninja should work were complete rubbish. While her mother was fully supportive about her plans to become the greatest medic nin since Tsunade, as she saw it as a much nobler kind of ninja than the brawlers as she called it, she still had it out for Naruto. Wouldn't she be surprised once the information that Naruto was the Yondaime Hokage's only son hit the village? Naruto meanwhile stocked his 2 hip pouches with all the things he would need in the exams. Thanks to his sealing abilities, his thigh pouches could hold double the number of shuriken and senbons respectively. Same was true for his hip pouches. With all his specializations he needed more supplies than fit into normal pouches. His new cloak would be introduced in the finals. He was sure that he would make it there. It would be really embarrassing if he didn't pass while having Jonin level skills. And as far as he knew, the first 2 parts were team tests. And as little as he liked his teammates, he knew they were reliable now. Sasuke also prepared his equipment for the next day. He knew that a lot rode on his team's performance. To think that he had been trained by the future Godame Hokage made him review his time on Team 7. He had to admit that he was really glad that his sensei and his teammate Naruto had broken him out of his former funk. He had hindered himself with his behavior and had let idiotic civilians fill his head with hot air. While he still wanted to find Itachi, now he wanted to question him about the massacre first. With him getting better at meditation techniques, he had also remembered that Itachi had cried the night of the massacre, and that didn't sit right with him. He would get strong enough to catch Itachi and force him to tell him the truth. If he had simply been an arsehole and a traitor, he could still kill him after pumping him for all information he had. Naruto walked through the village, his last purchase safely stored in his hip pouch. He had bought a week's supply of energy bars at Jakinato's. It was better to have some nutritious food in reserve in case you couldn't hunt or cook safely. And the forest of death was merciless, as he knew from pilfering the dead genin that had been in previous tests. When he walked back towards his home, he was passed by the Hokage's grandson Konoha and his two friends Mogi and Udon. He knew them briefly, as he had met Konoha once when he had tried to defeat his grandfather to become Hokage. Naive, but Naruto could understand that the boy wanted to be seen for himself. What he didn't like was that the brat was spoiled to think that nobody would hurt him just because he was the Hokage's grandson. Suddenly he heard a pained cry and decided to better look what was up. So close to the start of the Chunin exams, he didn't want to risk any problems because a brat couldn't keep his mouth shut, and that cry had sounded like Konoha. When he rounded the corner, he saw that he had been right. Konoha was held up by his shirt by a black-clad Suna ninja. Considering the bandaged bundle on his back and his attire, Naruto suspected that he was a puppeteer, one of the famous abilities Suna taught to his ninjas. The blonde girl with the 4 ponytails had a war fan on her back and probably used wind-style jutsus with it. That could be dangerous if she was good at using it. "That hurt you, brat," the boy in black said. "Let me down, don't you know who I am?" Konoha shouted. "I don't care, but I think you need to learn a lesson in manners," the boy said. "Kankuro, let him down, we don't want problems," the girl said. Naruto noticed that she was quite pretty. He guessed that she was a few years older than him. "The brat is asking for it, to marry," the now identified Kankuro replied. Naruto of course knew their names. Temari and Kankuro were children of the Yondaime Kazekage. That meant that Gaara, their youngest brother, who was the Jinchuriki of Shukaku, was probably also here. Interesting. He decided to get Konoha bailed out. "Please let the brat down, we don't want to provoke an incident before the Chunin exams start, right?" he spoke up, addressing Kankuro. The two Suna genin looked at him. Naruto noticed a small blush on Temari's face and he smiled winningly at her, intensifying the blush. "I don't really know what happened, but he is only a child, so you shouldn't get worked up over whatever mishap he was involved in," Naruto said, walking up to them calmly. "The brat ran into me not looking where he went and then had the gall to demand that I apologized to him," Kankuro stated. Naruto just shook his head. "I see. I apologize for his bad manners and I will make sure to bring it up with his grandfather, the Sandaime Hokage. And you can be sure that I will make sure that you get punished for this, Konoha. You should be ashamed to make such a bad impression on the children of the Yondaime Kazekage. By the way, you can come out of the tree. I doubt you will get a good show now," Naruto called out. The others looked up to the tree and saw a red-haired boy hanging upside down on a tree branch. He raised an eyebrow and then used a sand body flicker to appear next to the group. "You are good," the boy commented. "Kankuro, let the boy go, we will leave this matter to Konoha to resolve. It's not worth our time to deal with snot-nosed brats." I am not a brat. Konoha protested only to get bunked over the head by Naruto. You are a brat. Now apologize to Kankuro for running into him while not looking where you ran. Geez, the old man really needs to talk to Ebisu again about filling your head with nonsense. If you ever really want to become Hokage, you need to stop thinking you are the top of the world. Only hard work will bring you where you want to be. Naruto stated. Konoha looked completely caught off guard that somebody really told him off for his behavior. I would like to know your name. I am Gaara Sabaku. Gaara addressed Naruto. You seem really well informed. My name is Naruto Namikaze. I assume you are their younger brother, the third child of the Yondaime Kaze Kage. Naruto replied. Namikaze. Temari gasped. Like the Yondaime Hokage. He was my father. Naruto confirmed. There was no need to keep his identity a secret anymore. It would come out tomorrow anyway. Are you taking the Chunin exams as well? Gaara wanted to know. Yes. My sensei nominated my team. Naruto confirmed. I look forward to facing you. If you are anywhere as good as your father was, you will be a worthy opponent, Naruto. Gaara said. I look forward to seeing your strength too, Gaara. I will take my leave, I need to get the brat back to his grandfather. Kankuro, Temari, nice to meet you. Naruto gave both a nod and then turned around and gathered the children and went away. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.